Yay! Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Julie, and thank you, My Jewish Learning. My rabbi used to say that nothing is random and souls travel together. So here I am looking at Catherine and Alexander and John and Patrick and Wendy and Heidi and Beryl and Gail and Susan and Tanya and Robert and Yvonne and Joel. And I'm like, whoa, perhaps I've waited my entire life just for this Friday morning to be in the same Zoom room as you. Because as we know, our souls, or at least according to one, uh, you know, train of thought in Judaism, our souls travel together through the different incarnations. And, a lot of times in the Jewish world, we talk about tikkun olam, repairing the world. Tikkun olam has a different layer. Tikkun also means we're doing a fixing on our souls for all the different times we've come back, all the different lifetimes we've had. Like, who knows, maybe Reba and I were sisters in a past life, or maybe Robert and I were best friends, and we had to just come back this Friday morning just to learn a little bit of Torah together to do that tikkun, that fixing on our souls. So I just think it's really precious and special and magical that we all get to meet from all over the world. Okay, so here's our plan for our very quick Torah learning shiur. My plan is that I want to share with you some of the most mind-blowing, completely crazy Torahs from the Parashat Noach that I've ever heard in the 15 years that I've been studying Torah. And then we're going to go ahead and take some messages from those mind-blowing Torahs, and then we're going to see how we can apply them to our lives. So that is the outline of what we're going to do today. And just in case anyone didn't get the chance to open up that Bible this week, as Julie said, this is Parashat Noach. And Noach is our, most famous children's tale of Noah, the man who at I think it's 500 or 600 years old. I believe it was 500. God tells him that the world is acting bad, and now it's time for him to spend the next 120 years of his life building this ark so that a small portion of humanity can survive after God decides to just wipe out the world. So that's just the context. If anyone hasn't had the time to just, wrap our head around the basic outline of the story. Now, the reason that I asked if anyone here was from Kentucky is because the first mind-blowing idea about Parashat Noach, and Julie, I wonder if you've ever heard this. Here we go. Do you guys know that there is a holy Christian man who spent $100 million to rebuild a precise replica of the Ark of Noah in Kentucky? Just raise your hands if anyone knew this. Did anyone know this? Yeah? You knew this? This is mind-blowing. So I've been living in Israel for the last 14 years, and I was like, I really want to see the Ark. How am I ever going to get to Kentucky? And now that I am here in Los Angeles, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get to Kentucky. So if you want, we can make a My Jewish Learning group trip, because this man, it's a completely gopher wood structure. I think it's the largest timber structure currently in the world. And he has literally taken all of the biblical calculations to redo the ark. Now, the reason that I love this so much is because one of my favorite things to do as a person who their profession, that I get the privilege. Oh, Heidi and I are going. That's it. Woohoo! Heidi, let's make our plans. So, the reason that I love this so much is because I feel that one of the devastating things we can do to our tradition is read the Bible like an ancient story. Something that happened a few thousand years ago. Yeah, that must have been interesting. My favorite thing is when we go into the story and imagine. Has anyone here been on a cruise or a sailboat? Cruise or a sailboat? Anyone get sea legs, and then you get off the boat and you're like, oh, I think I'm gonna barf. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get a little nauseated. Beryl, you ever been on a sailboat or a cruise line? So Julie, you said no, but I'll tell you what happens, Julie. Even on the most advanced, fanciest cruise lines, sailboats, yachts you've ever been on, there's this like sort of nausea that happens once you get out mid-sea, and wow, okay, let's put this whole image together. And I really highly, tremendously recommend looking online. You can look on YouTube at Noah's Ark in Kentucky, and it will show you like a 6-minute news clip on NBC. It's really worth watching because it gets you in the vibe. And then you could see, wow, the ark was exactly that long. And wow, it had 3 floors for the humans and the animals and their refuse. And whoa, if the bottom floor was all refuse, like, oh my goodness, can you even imagine how stinky it must have been? Susan, Doug, is that like a nightmare? I mean, really. And then let's imagine, right? So we have the ark in our mind's eye, and we have the floors in our mind's eye, and then 150 days on this boat with tumultuous waves, like tsunami style. Wasn't there a movie once that they made about like sailors on a boat and the boat gets crazy and the entire 2-hour Hollywood movie is just like people freaking on this sailor's boat or something? Yeah. Get some headlights. So it's just, you say Noah and the animals, but like, have you thought about the smell? Have you thought about the sounds? What would the sounds have been like in Noah's Ark? Joel, have you ever thought about this? What did 2 elephants sound like? Have you guys heard cicadas? Anyone here from the East Coast? We have a lot of East Coasters, right? What is the sound of a cicada? It's like really, right? It's really intense. So you have the elephants and the cicadas and the lions and the smell and the sounds. I mean, this was really a full experience. And meanwhile, you might be getting tossed side to side. And again, guys, Cindy's husband loves cicadas. Is it cicada or cicada? I don't know because I'm from Los Angeles, but
Cicada.
Cicada. Thank you, Julie. But I really like to paint the mental image of us to take out from a childhood story into an adult situation where we want to understand what Noah must have been going through. To really take a moment to think. And again, there's no windows on this ark. There was only one window at the top that was called a tzohar. And it could have been or a window or a gem, but there were no windows. I mean, this is a really interesting experience, especially if you're claustrophobic, especially if you have any fear of any particular animals. They were all there. I mean, mosquitoes, snakes, scorpions, every animal that we know. So it's just, I really love this little bit about Kentucky because I think that the most best, I'm so Israeli, the most best way we can learn the Torah, the best way that we can learn Torah is if we really put ourselves into the experience of what these biblical characters must have been through. Because at that point, we can tune into their emotions. And at that point, and here's where my psychology background kicks in, we could see at what area in our lives we feel sometimes that our life is like a flood. And one of the most beautiful thoughts that came to me this week is, well, what do you do when your life is a flood? This isn't really about Noah, and it's not really about the snow leopards. It's about me and it's about you. So what do I do when my life feels like a flood? When I'm feeling tossed and turned? And one of the simplest answers that came to me is we either sink or we rise. We either sink or we rise. And a lot of us have beautiful lives going on right now and a lot of in deep challenge. But when we're in deep challenge, are we sinking or are we lifting our heads up to act like a mensch, to do exactly what God needs us to do, just like Noah did? And to say, okay, my life is a flood, but I'm going to sink or I'm going to rise. There's a beautiful pop song by this woman named Andra Day, and it goes, and I'll rise up. I'll rise like waves, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up. And I love that song because I feel like it's Parashat Noach. All right, so first of all, I'd like some thumbs up, please, because it's so lonely that I can't hear you and experience you and talk with you. Was that interesting to contemplate what it might have been like to be on the Ark of Noach? Have you ever taken more than a minute to think, wow, what was it like to really be there? John Messer, have you ever thought about that? No, so it's really fascinating. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to point out a few mind blows. So first of all, and I don't know if this is going to be backwards, but I made a sign and it says boiled in Gehenna. One of the first mind-blowing facts that I want to bring you is that in the Midrash, it says, oh, why, thank you. Sion is complimenting me on my vocal stylings. In the Midrash, it says that every single drop of rain that fell onto the ark initially boiled in Gehenna, in hell. Now that's a crazy Midrash. That's interesting. What's up with this? Why do we need to know that the waters of the flood were boiling? And besides that, here's a question I haven't had answered by any rabbi or rebbitzin. How did the fish survive if the water was boiling? And here's another mind blow. Some people, some scientists that still hold that evolution actually happened in stays, use the flood of Noach to say that it was those very boiling waters that traded the earth and dated the fossils to make them look millions of years old. Now, I don't personally mind if we hold by scientific evolution or biblical evolution or a combo thereof. If you haven't heard that interesting commentary, that's fascinating. They say that, again, some of the reasons that these fossils are dated is because they were aged with this boiling water of the flood. Just curious, has anyone heard that idea? Is that a new idea? Raise your hands if that's a new idea. I just love these little mind blows. The reason that I'm telling you that is not so that we have an interesting theory that might say that, oh, maybe the world really was created in 6 days, but rather the message behind it. And the message behind it is, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, I'm sure many of you have heard of him, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, a great Hasidic Rebbe from a few hundred years ago, said that anytime we are going through a growth process, a spiritual growth process, it might feel like hell. And the reason is because when you go from one spiritual level, from one bandwidth, and you flip up into the next spiritual bandwidth, the way that you do that soul-wise is your soul goes through what's called a mikvah of fire. And that's why many of us, again, life can be beautiful and life can be a real big challenge, but many of us, sometimes we feel like we're just falling apart or that we're just experiencing some form of hell. I want you to know that Judaism tells you that means you're growing. It doesn't mean you're a loser. It doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you're not good enough, unwanted, or unloved. It simply means that you're growing. So I love to do intermediate blessings.
Nili, I think you froze, right? Or did I freeze? Nili, can you hear us? All right, we will give Nili a moment to come back to us. In the meantime, anyone have any thoughts they want to share? I'm afraid I won't be able to continue this teaching, but if you want to use your virtual hand, if you want to be unmuted, Tanya, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting about Parashat Noach, in the beginning of Bereshit, God took all the water and he separated and he put boundaries, but now all those boundaries have been erased and the waters are just everywhere. It's like, at first it was tohu vavohu, and then God put everything in order, and now the fountains of the deep burst forth. And I think it was really interesting that the water came from the depths of the earth, that it wasn't just rain.
Thank you, Tanya. I have Nili on the phone with me. I think hopefully she's going to try and log back in. She says she's sorry. It's the internet. B. Maya, do you want to comment?
Yes, I had put in the chat that I went to, I think it was at a church, and they had a replica of the tabernacle. So I really understood what she was saying about kind of imagining what it would be like. Because sometimes when I read it, I don't really get the full like experience of it, but to imagine what it would be like, and then to experience it was totally different. Just it was really moving and incredible. So I would imagine that seeing the ark would be really interesting because I've never had any of those thoughts about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been, but sounds fascinating. Anyone else have a comment? Something I'd like? Well, it looks like Nili is back with us. Let's give her a second.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Hi. I'm sorry, guys. God seems to have a funny plan for this morning. All right. Did I interrupt someone?
Nope, it was actually good timing. We had 2 comments and no one else had their hands raised. So here we are, back with you.
Perfect. Perfect. So yes, I just wanted to share this idea in terms of making the story come to life and in terms of applying it to our lives, that when we feel like we're going through hell, okay, are you ready for the next crazy mind blow? All right. Yeah, crazy mind blow, thumbs up. All right. So what, maybe type in the chat box for me, what are some of the interesting animals that you imagine would be on this ark, right? So I'll give you an example. In Indonesia, the national bird is called the bird of paradise, and it's exquisite. Maybe you've seen it on a BBC Nature video, and it has tails that flow in the wind after it, and it's rainbow colored. What animals would be really cool that you might think that you might see on the ark? Does anyone have any? What would be the coolest animal for you to see? Platypus. What else? Julie, what would be cool? Oh, pangolins, right? Those would be cool. Sloths. Oh my God, that would be epic. Flamingos, right? Zebras. Awesome. The dodo bird. Okay, well, I want to otters. Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. I hope that no one got trapped in the cage with the ostrich. That would suck. And they hope that Noah really didn't have to spend too much time with the snakes. Let's be real. So, all right, I want to share with you my favorite animal on the ark. And you might be really surprised by this, but the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself, that's Menachem Mendel Schneerson, that main rabbi of Chabad, so this is like a really legitimate source here, tells us that one animal that was on the ark was the phoenix. You know, the mystical creature, this mystical creature that we've only heard about in legend, that is this special bird. And this is actually why I'm wearing this shirt tonight or today, to show you my magical fire colors, is this mystical bird that would burn up in fire and then become a pile of ashes and re-emerge from the ashes. Has everyone heard of the phoenix in mythological tales? So believe it or not, the Midrash says, oh, and it's in Harry Potter. Yeah, I heard there's a lot of really Torahic concepts in Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. But so this creature, the story goes in the Midrash that Noah was going around feeding all of the animals when one day he saw a fire in the corner of the ark. Now listen, guys, if you're supposed to save humanity on a wooden boat and there's boiling hot water all around you, you really do not want to encounter a fire on your boat. I mean, can we get a thumbs up? If you're the captain and you're saving humanity, who does not want to see a fire? I do not want to see a fire on my boat. So Noah quickly approaches the fire and he notices something very interesting. It's not burning anything. And there's some form of a creature in there. And the creature says, hello, Noah. And Noah's like, what? What's going on? Oh my God, what is this? And it says, hi, I'm the phoenix. And Noah's like, oh my God, oh my God, you're incredible, but oh my God, if you have been on the ark this whole time and I didn't see you, that means I haven't fed you. And Noah knew that his sole purpose was to keep these animals alive, and he was terrified. And so he dropped to his knees and was crying. And he said, no, no, this can't be. I'm so sorry that I didn't feed you. And the phoenix accepted him, and he had forgiveness. And at this moment, God blessed, and Noah blessed the phoenix. He says, I bless you to live forever. In the merit of the fact that I haven't fed you and you could have died, I bless you with eternal life. And in that moment, the phoenix was imbued with its powers of coming down into nothingness and re-emerging in the merit of its patience and its forgiveness. And actually, tradition says that the phoenix might return again in the times of the Messiah, that we can experience this amazing creature of God. And you know, again, first of all, that's just mind-blowing, right? This is an amazing midrash. I personally love it. And again, I love the message behind it for our lives, because I love the mind-blowing things and I love the messages. And the message is, you know, the phoenix really falls apart. Just like when your life is a flood, just like, you know, just like when we feel like we're boiling in the waters of Gehenna, the phoenix falls apart. And again, its question is, will it sink or will it rise? And it rises, and it rises. So again, I'm giving us another blessing that whatever goes on, we choose to rise. Okay, now, I saved some of the most mind-blowing ideas for now. So everybody knows, what are the two animals that Noah sent off the ark to check to see if the rain had stopped or if there had been any exposed land? Does anyone know? Good, Tanya, awesome. Oh, Gregory, nice. So we got ravens and doves. L'chaim, l'chaim. I already made a blessing, but I'm just enjoying my almond milk, cinnamon, maple iced coffee this morning. So initially, Noah had sent the raven off of the ark to check if there was any vegetation. But the weirdest thing happened. The raven wouldn't leave the ark. It kept circling the ark. What's going on? Why does it keep circling the ark? So you might think that it just, there wasn't any vegetation. But again, the Midrash brings an incredible story, and it says, actually, in the times of Noah, society was so depraved. We were stealing from each other. We were using each other sexually. And not only that, we were having relationships with the animals until, in Hebrew we say ad kedei kach, until the point where there were even marital contracts between men and animals for when they got together. And because there was such a blurring of boundaries, when the raven was sent off to get the vegetation, the raven actually thought that Noah was trying to get together with Mrs. Raven. And the raven was so mistrusting of Noah that it didn't want to leave the ark because it was keeping an eye to see if Noah was cheating on the raven with Mrs. Raven. Whoa, these are crazy ideas. And we're going to get into the message behind that one later. But I just want to throw at you a few more mind-blowing Torahs, and then we'll really dive in. By the way, hello, aren't these incredible? Julie, isn't this crazy? These are crazy ideas. I love it. I really love when the Torah blows our mind because, you know, in today's world, you know, and I'm very into this world of new age, hippie, open, consciousness world. One of the things we talk about in consciousness work is expanding our consciousness. And in order to expand our consciousness, it's really fun to play with these far out ideas because they tend to stimulate different emotions, and then we can have a different relationship with the Bible narrative or see how it applies to our lives. And again, one of the things that I love when learning Bible is just looking at the themes, because you might say, oh, the Bible's so outdated. And then it's like, well, really? Because just between Breshit and Noach, we have searching for a soulmate, eating, desire, blame, women craving men's attention, sibling rivalry, jealousy, getting naked and drunk, childbirth, feeling alone, heartfelt sadness, clothes, rejection, murder, repentance, giants, reptilians, peace, floods. I mean, it's like it's so relevant to our life. We even have here jealousy. Okay, here's another fun one before I get to the final crazy mind blower. So we're gonna skip around. I'm not so much doing the story cohesively, but I wanna blow our minds, like I keep saying, to bring us back. So here's an interesting fun one. And this one comes from the Zohar, which is obviously the main source book of the Kabbalah. It says in the Zohar in 126b that at the end of the Parsha, and if you haven't read, you might not have caught up on this yet, but after the flood comes and settles, then society is like trying to build itself up again. And the last story that we have in the Parsha is the Tower of Babel, that we build the Tower of Babel. And again, just for a quick mind blow, I wanted to share with you that the Zohar says that they weren't actually building a tower, but they were building a rocket ship. And that they had this information from the Nephilim, the giants that were fallen angels that had come down to earth with a supreme level of intelligence. And they had all this technological wisdom, and they were actually building the first rocket ship. So at your Shabbat table, you can sing, Rocket Man, da-na-na-na, long, long time. But I love, like, again, like I said, I want to expand my consciousness of what was possible then, so that I can expand my consciousness of what's possible now. And here is the absolute most mind-blowing thing that I've learned from Parashat Noach. L'chaim, l'chaim. And if anyone has any, yeah, Josh just wrote in the commentary, it sounds like ancient alien stuff. And Josh, you're totally on point. The Kabbalah completely agrees with you. So way to go. You and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai are on the same page. I'm enjoying watching the transcript brutalize all of the rabbis' names. Okay, so now, this is the most favorite thing that I have studied about Parashat Noach, and I encourage you to take notes, and I encourage you to share this teaching at your Shabbat table. Okay, so it says that Noach, and we brought up in the beginning this idea of reincarnation that I said, I'm so excited to learn with all of you because maybe in the past lifetime we hurt each other and now we need to share Torah to come back together. Who knows? But this idea of reincarnation. So if you haven't heard this one, buckle your seatbelts. So it says in the mystical tradition, and most reincarnations we learn out from the Arizal, it says that Noah reincarnated into one of the major figures in Jewish history. Does anyone want to take a guess? Now, Joel, if you watched my other class, you're not allowed to spoil the secret. Does anyone know in the chat box who Noah, and feel free to take a guess, who Noah may have reincarnated into? I'm just going to wait a second for everyone to take a guess. All right, well, Josh, you got it right. Noah reincarnates into Moses. Now listen why. This is just wow, wow, wow. So first of all, what is the ark called in Hebrew? Does anyone know what the ark is called in Hebrew? It's called a teva. It's called a teva. And if you look into the Bible just a few chapters later, we put Noah. Noah goes into the teva to save his life, and Moses goes into a teva. You know that basket that we talk about Moses going into? That's called a teva. In the story of Noah, it's covered in pitch, in wax, in you know, like that black stuff, right? And the same thing when we read about the story of Moses, we read how it's covered in pitch, in this tar. Oh, that's the word. Then again, what do? Noah goes into his ark and it goes onto the water. What happens with Moshe? He goes into his ark and it goes into the water. But that's not it. They both went into the water to save their lives. And that's not it. We learn in the story of Moses that the reason he got his name Moshe is because it comes from the expression min hamayim meshituhu, which means he was drawn from the water. But the sages say it didn't mean that Moses is called Moshe because he's drawn from the water of the Nile from the daughter of Pharaoh, but rather, bless you, bless you, bless you, Julie, may you be blessed forever and ever. But rather, when it says that Moshe was drawn from the water, his soul was drawn out from the waters of the flood of Noah. So you might think, oh, those are some cute analogies, Nili, but I don't know, convince me a little more. Well, let's see. The reason that we reincarnate is to finish the fixings that our soul was not able to complete in a previous lifetime. So we come back to fix it, right? So God forbid, let's say I stole something and I never repaid that in this lifetime. I could come back again just so that I could repay that person. Well, what was Noah's job? Noah's job was really to save the whole wide world. And in a way he did it, and God calls him righteous, so I'm not doubting him. But the truth is, he really only saved himself. That's really what ended up happening. He saved himself and his family, but not anyone else. Now, later, when we read about Moses, God says to him, I'm so frustrated with these people. I'm going to wipe them out and save you. And what does Moses say? Oh, no, you did it. Oh, no, you did it, Lord. I am not letting that happen. What does he say? No, kill me and save them. That Moses does the exact fixing that Noah does. He doesn't put himself first. He doesn't save himself. He says, no, save them. Save the world. If you need to, he says, wipe me out. And the words that Moses uses when he says, wipe me out and save them are macheni na. Now, if you're in tune with Hebrew and you take the word macheni and you rearrange these letters, you get two words, me Noach, the waters of Noach. So we can clearly see how Noah has to reincarnate into Moses, and the stories are almost literally parallel. And somebody mentioned in the comments earlier the burning bush. Well, actually, that is the idea that I received this week as well when I was learning about the phoenix, because there's only a few things in the Bible that burn and burn but don't actually consume. You know, one is the Hanukkah candles, one is the burning bush, and now we see also that there's the phoenix, this encounter with an animal that burns and burns and doesn't get consumed. And then a man named Greg, who was at my in-person class, said, yeah, and that's because they were actually caring for animals. Because the reason in the first place that Moses was at the burning bush is because he had followed one little sheep to take care of one little sheep from his pack. And the Christians really take this idea and run with it, that God really cares about all of us, and that Moses did too. And he follows this one little sheep, and that's how he finds the burning bush. And it was also Noah who was taking good care of every single animal, and that helped him find his way to God. And the lesson here is because it's truly compassion that leads us to God. It's caring for others and also ourselves. It's most important that we care for ourselves first, but in addition to that, in caring for others is where we find God. So I would just like everyone just to do this if that reincarnation Torah really blew your mind also. Do we have any mind blows on that amazing reincarnation Torah? Mind blowing, yes. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. All right, so Julie, I have about 10 minutes, right? Okay, sweet. So let's just do a quick review of what we learned so that if you want to take any of these fun facts to your Torah table, you can. So first we learned about Kentucky and the fact that there's actually $100 million ark in the exact replica. And please, if anyone goes, send me an email and let me know how awesome it was if you get there before me, because oh my God, that's like my dream come true. People making the Bible come to life. Love it. Okay, so we learned about Kentucky. We learned about boiled in Gehenna, that every drop of rain was first boiled in Gehenna, and that Rabbi Nachman says that when you go up a spiritual level, it's as if you went through a mikveh of fire. We learned about the story of the phoenix and how this once mythological creature may have truly been real, and it was blessed to live forever. We learned about many of the themes in both Bereshit and Noah and how they're still so relevant. We learned about the raven and how the boundaries were so blurred that even the raven was jealous. We learned from the Zohar about the Tower of Babel that it may have been a rocket ship. And there's so much I wish we could learn more. Then we learned about reincarnation. I don't know if you could see my sign. And the idea that Noah becomes Moses. And now I want to take all of these really cool fun facts and ask us, but wait a second. So that's mind-blowing, Nili, but we didn't even answer, like, why a flood in the first place? Here, I made another beautiful sign. Why a flood? Why a flood? Like sometimes we take it for granted, the Bible stories, like, and we don't question in the first place, but isn't that a great question? Why a flood? Anyone have an idea that they want to type in the chat box? Why a flood? I mean, God could have done it. Good, Sheila, beautiful. I'll address that in a moment. Anyone else? Why a flood? Like, what's up? Couldn't he? I mean, he could have just made a whole volcano and boom, or he could have just snapped his proverbial fingers. Like, what's up with that, right? Ah, okay. So many people I see are really getting one of the ideas that people share. A few people have commented that it was like a mikveh. It was a purification for the entire world because we were acting so off. We were mistreating each other. We were just treating each other horribly. And God's like, no, we got to cleanse this behavior. We have to start all over. And so it was a mikveh. That is true. So good job for everyone that said that. The reason that I like, that touches my heart, is, and somebody wrote it, I'm sorry, I didn't see your name, but that the flood is what we call midah keneged midah, that God treats us the way we treat other people. So if I treat everyone else around me compassionately, then God will be compassionate with me. And the flood, what is a flood according to nature? It's when water goes beyond its boundaries. It's boundary issues. It's boundary issues. We were out of bounds. We were not respecting our own boundaries. We were not respecting our neighbors' boundaries. We were not respecting our family's boundaries, both in kindness and also in sexuality. And so God's like, listen, peeps, if y'all are going to be going against boundaries, well, then that's, you make your bed, you sleep in it, you eat what you have to put on your plate. And so this is a really beautiful opportunity this week to reflect upon our personal boundaries. Our personal boundaries, what we need boundaries in our life, with our family, with our spouses, with our children, with our friends, with our coworkers, other people's boundaries, God's boundaries. And I'll tell you why from a psychological standpoint, because so I have a colleague and we run a workshop, like a psychological workshop for women together. And we had a little bit of an argument, and she's very conscious, and we were able to have a really beautiful communication around it. And she says to me, Nili, I think you're angry at me because you went beyond your boundaries. You gave more than you wanted to give, and now you're angry at me. And I said to her, you are totally on point. You are completely correct. Because I did not respect my own boundaries, I then took that upset and I projected it out on her. And so boundaries are so important first and foremost, because when we don't respect our boundaries, we tend to get angry at others. When we don't respect other people's boundaries, they get angry with us. So the way just to when we're blowing our mind of Noach and all these different concepts about spiritual growth, I think that the one that we can really sit with this week is the question of boundaries. Do I need to firm up my boundaries and learn to say no? Do I need to loosen my boundaries and have a margarita? Do I need to check in with God and see if I'm respecting God's boundaries? A huge boundary check-in is with our children. A lot of times we think our children, we own them or something. We forget that we're actually just here to raise them. And a lot of times we disrespect the boundaries of children or elderly. So this is a great week as the flood came in to be like, hint, 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 y'all are having some boundary issues, to take a look at our lives and at all of our different relationships and just check in with ourselves. And again, everybody's work is different. So your work might be firming your boundaries and again, learning to say no or not to give, because Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication, said that anything that we do that we don't want to do, we pay the price in resentment. If someone invites me over and I don't want to go and I still go just because I feel bad, I have gone over my own boundaries, and guess who's going to pay the price? me, the person I went to, because I'll end up with resentment, God forbid. So again, really respecting our boundaries is what God is calling upon us to do. And I would like to end with a final teaching, if that is cool. Yeah? Okay, so today we did mind-blowing Torahs. We did a big message about stepping back and looking at why a flood in the first place. And the last Torah that I want to share with you is one of my favorite Torahs that I ever learned. It comes from a rabbi named Rav Schloss, who lives in the old city of Jerusalem. And he said the following thing, and I heard this one time, maybe 15 years ago, and I've never forgot it. And again, if you have a pen with you, I really recommend writing this down because it's a beautiful teaching. So he says that we can learn about any problem you have in your life. Oh, am I still on? Okay, great. Any problem you have in your life can be addressed just by looking at the first 4 titles of the different parshas, okay? Just the parshas. You know, the Torah is so infinite that sometimes we forget that there's profundity in the simple. So let's see. I know you guys are avid learners. Can anyone name the first 4 parshas of the Bible? So we know the first one is Breshit. We know the second one is Noach. Does anyone know what next week is in the chat box? It's, yes, Tanya, nice. It's Lech Lecha. And the next one is, of course, Tanya knows. Go, Tanya. It's your birthday. Vayera, Tanya, you got to teach us how to Torah. Woo, woo. Okay, so Breshit, Noach, Lech Lecha, and Vayera. So Rav Schloss says, let's look at the meaning, because if we simply look at the meaning of each word, we're going to get a profound message for our life. So Breshit means in the beginning. Noach means chill out, relax, chill. Lech Lecha means go to yourself. And Vayera means, and you will see. So Rav Schloss says, if you have any problem in your life, all you need to do is turn to the first 4 titles of the first 4 parshas and you get your message. In the beginning of any problem, Noach, chill out, you can trust God. He's really profound, and he's been hanging the entire globe in the center of universal emptiness with stars floating around us for millions of years. We're good, people. We're good, right? They say if God can hold the entire universe in perfect balance, he's probably holding your life together too. So Breshit, in the beginning of any problem, Noach, chill out. Lech Lecha, go to yourself, listen inside. Vayera, and then you will see some solution. So I don't know, thumbs up for an epic, epic Torah. So again, I told Julie before we let everybody in from the waiting room, I wish I had 3 hours to share about Parashat Noach, because I've just given you fun tidbits, but there's like exponentially more beautiful learning. So I bless us all. We're going to do a little review and a blessing before I pass the mic back to Julie. Sorry, Julie, I'm hogging the mic. I am hogging the mic. I want to bless us on this day that as we go into Shabbat, that we take time to learn Torah, to make the Torah come to life, to imagine with all of our 5 senses what it was like to be there. And this is a great game for kids. Ask them to imagine what it's like to be there. I bless us to know that just like the water was boiling, that anytime life is hard, we are going through spiritual ascension. We're going through a mikvah of fire for spiritual growth. I bless us like the phoenix to be patient, and like Noach to be kind. I bless us to ponder upon this idea that Noah is Moses. I bless us to take a look at our boundaries this week and see what will work for us better in any different area of our life. And I bless us that at the beginning of any problem, we get to chill out, relax, look inside, and then please God, see and answer, so that when the flood of our life comes, we do not sink, but we rise to the occasion. So thank you so much for having me. And I thank you everybody for showing up. It's really my favorite thing to get to do. And Julie, I pass the mic back.